Hello everyone, welcome back. Robert Marzullo here from Ram Studio Comics, and today I want to show you how to draw or paint, I guess, these three ear shapes. So it's a side, kind of a front, and a back, and talk to you a little bit about what you can look for when creating your own ear studies and how to then take this and relate it to other styles of drawing, whether it be comics or storyboarding or what have you. So let's go ahead and jump on and we'll time lapse to the first part where I paint through these and I'll talk to you about that. And then we'll stop afterwards and do a little bit of draw through study of the ear shapes and see what we can find. Okay, so let's get to it. So the first thing I do is draw any kind of perimeter shape in any loose sketch of the underlying shapes or the inside shapes of the ear. And I think one of the reasons why the ear is just so tricky to do is just there's so many weird little curvatures and designs in the ear. One of the reasons, though, I think is why once you get comfortable with it, it's also easier in the sense that you don't have to stick to a certain defined shape as much. There are certain things that you want to get right for it to be recognizable as an ear, but then there's a lot of variety to the ears. In fact, probably some of the most variety to any portion of the body, I would think, or right up there at the top, anyways. So just getting in these shapes, using a smudge brush to blend out the line work, and then getting in there with a soft brush and shading it down, and then finally coming back with white as a highlight to help flesh out the form a bit more. So really these are just quick studies, and I think this is a really important thing to get a comfort level with anything that you're doing. So I like to create lots of studies. I like to do them in sketch and paint, variations of each, just to, again, really get all these kind of pushed into my mind's eye. Okay, so now what I want to do is just go through this with you and show you some of the shapes that from doing this, and keep in mind, I've drawn and painted ears probably hundreds of times. I would say that this one here, I've probably painted this style of that direction of ear, a few hundred times. This one a few hundred times. This one a lot less because it's a back shot of the ear. That's also something to take into account when you're trying to do these studies, that the first few, first 20, first 30 even, may come out looking a little awkward, and you're going to, over time, just get better and better. But the other thing that I start to pay attention to is just shapes that I can memorize. One that's real popular with the ear from this angle is, if you notice right here, you can see a C and a Y. So that's a really kind of quick way to memorize that shape, and if nothing else, to kind of get that into place and make it a lot easier on yourself to get this form. Now, obviously, after you get more and more comfortable with it, you're going to start to see that it's not a perfect C, that it's going to be a little bit more like a bit of a curve here and a downward kind of teardrop or bump at the bottom. Another thing to pay special attention to is the way that the ear will come in like this, and then you get that little bit of the lobe, or I guess the lobe is down here. But what you want to kind of look for are these shapes. Like this is almost a heart shape right there, or an apple or something like that. And the more you can start to perceive it in a variety of shapes, the more you'll memorize it, and it'll be a lot easier to construct without reference. I did look at reference for these because I wanted a little bit more realism, but I'm also going to show you real quickly how you could take it from here and make it look a little bit more animated. So with this one, again, we could make the argument that we still see the C and a Y right there, so it's still prevalent even from this foreshortened or tilted perspective. The other thing that I see, or I usually start when I draw my ears for comics, from this perspective, is I start with entirely a disc shape, almost like a thinned out bike tire, and I'll get that into place as my placeholder or my beginning structure, and then I'll do a little bend here, I'll do that little pop out here and that reverse bend. Some people have even made the association that this looks kind of like a downward thumb to a hand, so if you can kind of almost see that. And again, all these things just make it a little bit easier to commit this to memory. And then over here, I would start with a bit of a wedge or a disc shape like this, so you could almost perceive that this is, again, kind of a disc. And then another disc on a slight angle with a slight taper like this. So you can see this actually pretty much lines right up to that. And then you'd come through and add a little bit more of that fleshy kind of, bulbous skin area here and there, tapering lines to connect it. You don't want it so rigid. And rather quickly you can get something like that to look like an ear shape. Okay, so now what I want to show you is, let's go ahead and take this ear, but let's say that we wanted this to be, for storyboarding, for comics, whatever. We wanted to simplify it. So this is the other part of what I think is very helpful. When you start to do your studies like this, this may not be, maybe you're not doing a digitally painted comic or storyboard or whatever, but you still need this information. Now, obviously, you could just use the sketch like we started with, but it was pretty rough. But you also want to, get in the habit of taking things like this and just simplifying them. So you don't necessarily have to get in all these shapes. You can kind of just do the broad strokes. So let's get in and I'm just going to stylize this a bit more than what you see on the one next to it, just to kind of enhance what I'm talking about. So I want to get in there rather quickly, get some of those shapes so it's recognizable as an ear, but I'm not going to be so tight to that one over here. I'm going to get some basic line weight, the same kind of overall structure, but then that's about it. And like, for instance, this kind of heart shape that you see here, I'm not even going to worry too much about that. I'm just going to simplify it, put a bit of a shadow right here for the opening to the eardrum or whatever, a little shadow here, and maybe I do still want that little bit of that Y, not as detailed as what we had in the study. And just little bits of shapes of shadow just to kind of push these forms around. I like to put the shadow up here because you really want the effect that this top part of the ear overlap is pretty strong. Gives it more dimension. And and then you could take it from here. You could call this even enough detail, especially for comic type work. You don't have to get too awfully crazy with it. Depends on what style you're after, and then you can get in there and start shading and giving it whatever kind of look and feel that you want. But I just wanted to show you how you could, when you do these types of studies, I think it's oftentimes good to do the study in a more realistic fashion, but then also be open to changing it to a stylized rendition like I'm doing here. And obviously I can soft erase this. I kind of went almost straight to ink or something, but I could soft erase this, clean it up, keep adding as much line work as I want to, or as little, and that's it. So yeah, so hopefully this video has shown you a thing or two. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. What other types of renditions you'd like to see, and explanations to that, and I'll make sure to get that on the schedule. So as always, I appreciate you tuning in and watching. Keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.